One of the hardest problems to solve in coral reef science is what makes them tick. Where does the energy come from? How do they survive during periods where there's lots of food, a little bit of food? So we've approached that problem a bunch of different ways, sometimes through physiology, looking at what do fish do physiologically on the reef, how do the corals grow? But we've never really been able to put it all together until we figured out that we needed to include physics. So the big thing about this project is that it included the physics of the ocean on the coral reef. How do the waves impact the corals?
The location of the research is in the Chagos Archipelago, which is a large marine protected area in the Indian Ocean.
The problem we set out to solve is to scrutinize some methods that have been used in coral reef science for decades and that will be used for decades to come. So it's sort of a looking inwards a little bit and making sure that we are right when we go to these remote places and we deploy our instruments and spend hours in the water, that what we are measuring is actually representative of the sites we are studying. Typically we would have, one instrument measuring something, and that would be a very valuable result, and we would give that to our colleagues who would use that result to infer things about the biology and the chemistry and the ecology and ultimately the health of this reef. But what if our one result wasn't reliable? Then all of these derived results would also be unreliable. Imagine a coral reef being an underwater city. In a city on a windy day, you have skyscrapers and you have parks and bridges and all these things, and depending on where you stand, the wind can be really strong or you can be sheltered from the wind. In the same way, corals on different parts of a reef can be more or less affected by the flow. So you can imagine sort of a small little alleyway between corals, and the flow will go in really fast there, and other places where it's more flat, the flow will act differently. So really that's an important property. It's an important property in cities, but it's also an important property for corals. So that's sort of what we're inferring in these results.
We found that different instruments that have different characteristics of measuring the flow velocity and the roughness of the reef, they actually measure the same thing even when they're placed in the same area but a few meters apart.
The question is, if you say you want to study the physics on the reef, how do you know you're making the right measurements? So this study actually is about where do you make the measurements, how many measurements do you need, and we had an opportunity to put out all kinds of current meters in different locations on the reef, about 5 or 10 meters apart, and then do the analyses of the water column flow to see whether we were getting the same understanding of how currents are interacting with this very rough substrate. And the answer is yeah, it looks like we can use one instrument and extrapolate data from that instrument over a larger part of the reef.